Welcome to Inform Overload. I'm your host Johnny Rogers, and if you happen to be new here, we take the most interesting news stories on the internet and then make them more entertaining. So to never miss another story, click that subscribe button. Plus, you can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, we got them all. And make sure you folks stay all the way until the end of this video because you won't believe our #1 spot. Now without any further delay, let's jump right into today's list of the top 10 scary Airbnb stories that will give you nightmares. In at number 10, the Australian scam. A woman from Auckland, New Zealand had booked what was listed as a beautiful home in a city on the North Island of New Zealand. The Airbnb listing was even categorized as a luxury apartment. Michaela had booked the spot for her and her 8 friends to relax while on a summer vacation. However, things started to get strange when 2 of the friends arrived and the homeowners told them that the home was never listed on Airbnb. Michaela, though, had booked the staycation 6 weeks before their intended arrival for nearly $5,000. Although when the payment system wasn't working on Airbnb, she agreed to pay the host through a bank transfer. Oh well, don't do that. The scam artist had even set up emails and fake websites for the listing that looked identical to what Airbnb would use. In at number 9, the hidden camera. Derek and his wife had just checked into an Airbnb in the Florida town of Longboat Key, expecting to have a nice getaway. The host for the apartment had even received stellar ratings across the board on his profile. While unpacking though, Derek noticed that the smoke detector directly above the bed had an unusual hole in it. Suspecting that something was awry, Derek climbed up and pulled apart the smoke alarm. What he found inside was a micro camera that was pointed directly at the bed. Upon booking the vacation, we're sure they could never have imagined that their Airbnb host would be using this as an opportunity to secretly film them. The couple immediately reported this incident to the police. The homeowner, Wayne Nat, who had been doing this for at least 2 years, was promptly arrested and charged with video voyeurism. Creepy. In at number 8, the forever guest. While the first 2 involved guests who had nightmarish experiences, this next one involves a host. A woman who had listed her Palm Springs condo to a man on a extended business trip had no idea that she would need to bring in the law just to get her place back. The first red flag came when the guest complained about the unit having cloudy tap water and an issue with the gated entry. His remedy for this was to ask Airbnb for a full refund. According to the host, 2 days later, the man received an email from Airbnb stating that if the unit was not up to par, then to just leave. Although the woman renting out her condo stated that the man would not leave regardless of issues with the unit, so she allowed him to stay for the remaining 44 days of his booking. When this all came to an end, the man still had not paid a dime for the rental, nor did he want to leave. Oddly enough, when the woman threatened to cut off all the utilities to force him out, he proceeded to say that if she did, he would sue her, stating that the cloudy tap water had caused him, and I quote, a lot of stress and suffering. Talk about first world problems. Eventually, she hired a lawyer, but soon found out that it would take at least 3 to 6 months to get him out and cost anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 in legal fees. Man. In at number 7, the all-night rave. Airbnb had just introduced their newest feature that was supposed to be a music experience concept. Although little did Airbnb execs or this poor host know, a huge rager was about to go down. The original concept was to bring people together for exclusive and intimate gigs. Although I hardly call a 1-bedroom apartment party with 200 people intimate. In fact, that's the opposite of intimate. That's what nightmares are made of. The tourists who had rented out the Airbnb legit turned the 1-bedroom apartment into an all-night rave party. They even had a bouncer posted up by the main entrance to validate tickets for people attending. The party would go on until 6 a.m. before neighbors called police to break up the impromptu shindig. To make matters worse, the hosts were away on vacation in Vietnam, so they couldn't really do anything. In at number 6, the junkie den. This story started off innocent enough and began with a woman reaching out to Holly, a host of an Airbnb in Sydney, Australia. The woman told Holly that her and her boyfriend had a sick child that was staying in the Sydney Children's Hospital, so they were in need of a nearby apartment for at least 10 days. Holly, who needed to pay off some credit card debt, was excited to host someone for that long and felt good about helping another human in need. As a new Airbnb host, she decked out her apartment with nice furniture and clean linens. Once the woman had checked out, Holly popped by to do some cleanup, but what she walked into was perhaps her worst nightmare come true. Her beloved apartment had been turned into what she described as a junkie den. There was a broken crack pipe in her vase, a mysterious green liquid smeared on the walls, and her clean linens were now covered in blood. Along with all of that, the home had been completely ransacked of any valuable items. Even her expensive new rugs had been used as ashtrays. This one terrible guest left behind a mess that would cost more than $7,000 in damage. In at number 5, the house dad. This story is so terrifying that Airbnb decided to withdraw any short-term rentals in the Anaheim market. An influencer and her friends were traveling to California for VidCon, so decided to rent out an Instagrammable Airbnb near to the conference. What they didn't expect was their host to be in tears when they arrived. Apparently the man had just gone through a divorce, and even before meeting them tried to propose a few times, and then a few times more while the women were there. I mean, weird, dude. When two of the women arrived at the Airbnb, the man finally left them, although later on they started to get really creeped out upon seeing that the front door's lock had been removed. When confronting him, he said that it was a safe neighborhood, but they still insisted that he fix it. After returning the next day from VidCon, he was inside the house blaring music and said that he had been working on the lock all day. They took over and fixed it within the hour. Each time they would leave and come back though, they would find this house dad, as they call him, sitting in front of the TV with music blaring. And after checkout, they decided to report the host to Airbnb, and the man had the audacity to say that the women stole upwards of $15,000 worth of stuff from his place. He even took a photo of their Bluetooth speaker and tried to claim that it was his. Talk about a nightmare. In at number 4, party for 100. A Canadian couple had to cut their holiday short after receiving a number of calls from concerned neighbors who said that something was going on with their home in Northwest Calgary. Once they returned, they walked in to see destroyed furniture, smashed glass, used condoms, and underwear scattered on the floor. On top of that, the guest had smeared, I'm not even kidding you, mayonnaise all over the walls. All over. Mayo. Everywhere. Police also discovered a ton of bodily fluids, including vomit and urine, throughout the Airbnb, thus referring to the incident as a drug-induced orgy. The estimated cost of the damage was anywhere between $50,000 to $75,000 Canadian. The neighbors had called 3 times about noise complaints and reports of a fight happening outside the 2-story home. Eventually, the police shut down the party and kicked out nearly 100 people. In at number 3, the Australian horror. A local Australian man was going through a tough time in his personal life and was looking for a cheap local accommodation to kind of sort himself out. Friends of the man say he only paid $30 a night to stay there, and due to the low cost, largely ignored the negative reviews. The room was a shared listing, meaning that 3 other tenants were also occupying the home at the time. Upon sensing that there was some bad energy in this new home, the man voiced his displeasure and attempted to leave. Unfortunately, he only made it as far as the front lawn. That is where the 3 men who were hosting the Airbnb killed their guest. Craig Levi, Ryan Smart, and Jason Colton were all charged with murder. In at number 2, the hidden corpse. When a group of friends decided to use Airbnb to rent out a home in a town south of Paris, they were shocked to discover that the home included more than just fresh croissants. While walking around the property, they got a nasty surprise when they stumbled across the body of a decomposing woman hidden in the garden. In a statement made by police, they said her body was found at the bottom of the property, which opens out into the woods, adding that foul play was suspected. The woman was fully clothed, although oddly enough not wearing any shoes, and still had a ring with a large stone on her finger, although no identifying documents were found on her. Who knew the last B in Airbnb stood for bodies? Last but not least, in our number 1 spot, burning down the house. Now, the majority of these Airbnb stories are told from the perspective of either an unfortunate host or a horrified guest, but this one was actually posted on Reddit by a former Airbnb employee. At the time, they were working as a customer service rep for the company when one night at 4 a.m. they received a call from a guest who said that the place they rented was burning down. What? Why would you call customer service before calling the fire department? Like, what is wrong with these people? Regardless, not even 20 minutes later, they received another call from the host of this place saying that the guest had set fire to their home. They admit that while it's not their place to decide who was at fault, one thing was for sure, that place did burn down. And that has been the top 10 scary Airbnb stories that will give you nightmares. Thank you so much for watching Inform Overload, and if you enjoyed this video, then show some love here by tapping that like and subscribe button. And if you find any news stories that you want us to cover, make sure you send the link in a DM to our Instagram page at Inform Overload. We like it, you may just see your story on our channel. Plus, leave us a comment down below with which story from our list scared you the most, and for more videos like this one, just click that playlist on the side of the screen. From IO, I'm Johnny Rogers saying until next time, take care.